control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Feel your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching
outdoor experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
They let us play with all our toys. They let us think that we're big boys. They let us make the louder noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman, that we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command, cause women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Said the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, and thank you so much for listening in at spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, and on Revolution Radio. We welcome you to tonight's show as we broadcast out of Uncle Jimbo's cabin in the Great White North. So we are live on this Wednesday night, early Thursday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we do this thing 3 hours a night, 7 days a week, because we want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the spiritual, conspiratorial, ufological, extraterrestrial, and so much more. If you like our music on the Spaced Out Radio side, that's from the guitar god himself, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. You can check us out on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, we say hi, how are you to everyone in the Revolution Radio chat room on the High Plains Talk Radio Network, in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, along with our fans on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles, Chronicles of the Unknown, Forest Moon Paranormal, and our flagship chat room, the SOR Space Travelers. If you haven't signed up for the SOR Space Travelers Club yet, you can. Our next draw is this Friday, the 26th. It's a $5 a month prize, and with that, your name gets entered into monthly prize draws. You get access to private group interviews, access to a special section on our website, and so much more. We're giving you much more than just access to our archives. While at spacedoutradio.com, you can read the latest blogs. As well, you can check out Eric Markham's SOR Spacewire for your latest in weird news. Tonight's show is brought to you by Rivulet Reiki and Readings, providing healings in person or at a distance. PurplePlates.com, helping heal your body, mind, and soul. The New Agora newspaper is the official paper of this show, and the Spirit Storybox. It's the iTunes app that's the official ghost hunting app of SOR. Remember, if you are a listener of Revolution Radio, it is the largest non-profit online radio station going right now. Take the time to visit freedomslips.com and donate today. We had Victor Viggiani on Spaced Out Radio back in June as we were presenting guests taking part in Canada's first ET UFO Disclosure Forum in Brantford, Ontario. The event had the best and brightest minds in the field of ufology, along with hundreds of spectators interested and the media. Can you believe the mainstream real media showed up? Wow. Victor was one of the key speakers who laid the groundwork of this lifelong cover-up by governments of the world who still refuse to admit that there are visitors from other planets and maybe different dimensions hanging out here on Earth. Tonight, Victor's going to break down the conference, and we're going to take this a little bit further. Victor has also been studying and relying on his sources to find out what the Vatican and the Pope know about extraterrestrials. What is the biggest religious leader in the world doing delving into the field of life outside our planet? We got to know. And that's why we bring Victor Viggiani back on to Spaced Out Radio tonight. Victor, so good to chat with you again. How are you, my friend?
Absolutely wonderful, and so glad to be with you. It's just terrific once again.
You know what? It's always a pleasure to have you on the air. And the last time we had you on, we had such a good conversation in regards to the field of ufology. You opened our eyes. We opened up your eyes a little bit. It really was a give and take with our audience as well, and that's what we really strive for. And I'm excited to talk to you this time because we actually went through the conference. It was very successful. It was very well put together. And what did we all miss for those of us who couldn't be in attendance?
Well, first of all, the first thing that if you did either tune in or were you there, it wasn't a conference. That's a misnomer. And one of the things that compelled me to do this was because I was sick of the idea of conferences, people, chirping on to the choir. And speech after speech after speech to people who were convinced about this. I wanted to change that paradigm. So what I did was develop an idea which surrounded the sort of courtroom focal point, the courtroom format as to how individuals who believe that we are being visited by off-world civilizations could interact with personnel from the media and make that a confrontational or at least an open dialogue about what was going on with respect to the journalistic perspective, which would be the mainstream, and 7 of the most powerful people in the UFO field on the planet on the same stage with them, with no holds barred questions fired at all the experts. And we had 5 journalists who did exactly that.
I'm surprised the mainstream media even showed up. We all know that they have a real loathing of this topic. They think there's just a bunch of tinfoilers out there. And it's funny because I got into it about, 5-6 days ago with a couple of my former journalist friends in Vancouver who were basically, so blind to this subject and thinking that people are so off base, they're tinfoilers as they like to call them. But to get the mainstream media out there, did it open up their eyes a little bit for the journalists who were in attendance?
Well, I think overall, the kind of coverage that we got from the mainstream media, which included the CBC, by the way, it was something that was a precedent setting for us because CBC in Hamilton and the Hamilton Spectator, which is a major newspaper here in Ontario, along with the Toronto Star, made a really good effort to cover the hearings, the inquiry, the way we set things up. So it was evident that there was some mainstream interest in what was going on. And one of the reasons they did that was because we addressed some very, very critical issues with respect to not only, an extraterrestrial presence and however you want to frame it, but we had 7 perspectives of 7 of the best people on the planet to provide information for the mainstream media with respect to specific issues that each one of these representatives, these journalists and experts represented. So it was an ideal situation where the experts met and face to face met with journalists who could throw good questions at them, and it turned out in a way that we did not expect.
Well, that's good that you opened up their eyes because, for the most part, I'm sure they were just showing up because it's an interesting story to do, and, we call that in the media fluff filler. You know what I'm saying? But it almost sounds like with the panel that was there and the journalists who showed up, they actually probably sat down knowing that I've been in these types of press conferences before, where you sit down and you all of a sudden think you're in for some type of filler Saturday, Sunday type journalism, where you're just looking to cap off some airspace, and then all of a sudden they were probably like, holy cow, This stuff is real. What are we doing about it? Why are we covering it up? Did you notice a lot of that type of reaction?
Oh, precisely. There's the number of what I'm going to call sort of intermediate level journalists who were very, very interested in the whole idea of the inquiry, of the hearings that we set up. But they all reported on it. They made a good effort to put it into their news on the web and onto other sources. They made a really great effort to do so. But unfortunately, they didn't get the what would I call it? The imprimatur, the permission from their publishers to go further with it. And that's the whole crime of what's going on here. We've seen this phenomenon in the States where a UFO sighting or something to do with extraterrestrial whatever is announced on regional CBS or regional NBC stations throughout the Northwest, the South, but never on the main cross-American network of CBC, or rather CBS and NBC and ABC. So regionally, this stuff is all covered really, really well. But on a broader perspective, it's kept below the mainstream ceiling that would get to like the CBS 60 Minutes or Dateline. It'll never get there. And so there's policies in place that this stuff can be covered regionally, but never make it through the national forum. Because if you keep it regional, then it's just very simple for people to talk about it and interact about it. You almost, you cloister it. But if you make it national, that's when the problems occur. So the powers that be only allow some of this stuff to be covered regionally. And it's a very, very interesting tactic and strategy by the mainstream media.
And you know what's funny is I had former Coast to Coast AM weekend host Ian Punnett on last week, and we were actually talking about the role of journalism and how it's being played out with these fields. Mm-hmm. And he was absolutely 100% adamant that the media was not being told what to do or what to say. And that kind of surprised me when he said that, because we have seen cover-ups. We have seen stories that have been dictated, more so in the U.S. than in Canada. We've seen stories that have been dictated, where they're one-and-done stories. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That there's no follow-up. And journalists are supposed to have follow-up to the story. Did you get a lot of follow-up press following this?
Yes, actually, there were a number of newspapers that published. The Brantford Inquirer was a very interesting article on what we did. So there was, some good follow-up after, but not to the point where mainstream media, as you said, they bit onto the first little bit of bait that we sent out there, but that's all they grabbed. They didn't go further. And I think that points to the way the media handles this stuff. They'll entertain it, or they'll pay attention to it when the firecracker explodes, with the bang that we hoped that would be there. But then again, there's no response to what the echoes are. And the echoes of what we did resonate very thoroughly in all the research that we've brought forward, the documents that we've published, and we have online right now a 2-hour summary of the entire inquiry that people can go to by tuning into the Alien Cosmic Expo and looking at the 2-hour download that we have available for that. And so it's all right there for people to see and to go after and say, what did these people really do? What was this inquiry all about? What did they accomplish? Who was there? What kind of statements were made? And the film company that we engaged, David, was absolutely phenomenal in putting together this download, this entire video of the 2.5-hour proceedings. So I would really encourage people to go to the Alien Cosmic Expo website and look at how the actually inquiry panned out. It's very difficult to describe. If you weren't there, you don't have a taste of it. But if you go and try to have a look at the download, you'll get a taste of the kinds of challenges that media threw at the experts. And these are 7, as I said earlier, of the best people on the planet. And we can elaborate on that, at your desire.
Absolutely, and we will get into that as this hour rolls on in regards to it. When you guys started talking, and the panel, it included Richard Dolan, it included Stephen Bassett, yourself,
Yep.
some major players, Grant Cameron, I believe Stanton Friedman was there as well.
Yep.
And we're talking the big names of this field that have credibility behind them, that people respect not only in the mainstream media, but there's government officials that respect you guys too. Was there any harassment about what you guys were doing behind the scenes from any government officials basically saying, you really shouldn't be doing this?
The simple answer to that question, David, is absolutely nothing. No, outside influence, cutting down of emails, and blocking out of telephone calls. There was absolutely nothing that would indicate that the powers that be or whatever were trying to, cut us off at the knees, so to speak, to cause problems. None of that occurred at all. And that's sort of very interesting, because this has been known to be a characteristic of a lot of other situations that the powers that be monitor. Now, I'm quite sure, I have absolutely no doubt in my own mind that they did, because of the kind of promotion that we did, they did follow the proceedings. I'm almost convinced of that. But in terms of any indication as to, cutting down of information or, off-circuiting certain, videos or information, none of that occurred at all.
Anybody strange or weird in the audience? Because I know in the couple conferences that I have gone to, there's always that one person that you wonder, are they affiliated? Maybe it's the tight haircut, maybe it's the way they're dressed, or their posture, or something along those lines. There always seems to be one. Well,
a lot of the times, David, what I do when I begin my presentations, I didn't do it this time, but I used, because of the context. But when I do a presentation like that, I always say to you, welcome to any government agents that are present here today. I'm hoping that the next 2 hours will be very enlightening for you. But this is sort of like an off-the-cuff comment that I generally make in my lectures. I didn't do it this time, but I can almost guarantee you that there was one or two persons there who were just there to find out what the hell was going on. Now, that's speculation on my part. We never saw any individuals that we would consider suspect. No, that didn't happen. But with something like this, with 7 of the most powerful people who are involved in this whole issue in one location, I have to imagine that some evidence, either within the media or within intelligence agents, were there to kind of let's just go and see what's going on here.
What was the audience's reaction to what you were putting out? Was it a real diverse audience, whether it's culture or age, or was it mainly a certain group of people that maybe have an interest in ufology?
Actually, that's a really good question, because we really looked at the audience, and I paid attention to it on the Saturday, the full day that we had the inquiry. And let me tell you something, I was so pleased and almost flabbergasted to one point to realize that there were kids there. Now, when I talk about kids, I'm talking about the 21, 22, 23-year-old millennium generation, as they call it right now. Plenty of those individuals sitting in the front seats of this with their iPhones and with their iPads and their communication devices, just texting back and forth and just going almost bleary-eyed, David, with what was going on. And these are young kids that are tweeting and putting on Instagram all the information that we were putting out. They just couldn't believe the amount and quality of what was going on. So we well knew that there was the younger generation represented there for sure. And also, too, just looking at the crowd, it was everything from the younger folks right up to people in their mid to late 60s, if not more, who were really, really and vitally involved in the evolution of this whole issue. So we had a really broad perspective and spectrum of audience that attended the inquiry. So it really reflects the fact that everyone is really kind of engaged. If you look at it as a bell curve, you're saying that your representative population really kind of understand what's going on, and the cross section of the population that we had, we feel really, really confident that we're getting to a lot of different groups and all age groups.
How about elected officials? Were there any elected politicians from the civic level all the way up to Parliament that attended? Because I know you guys were inviting them.
Oh, for sure. The short answer to that question was no, not that we're aware of. They may have showed up in a T-shirt and jeans, and we couldn't identify them, but they actually, we invited every single mayor, every single council member in southwestern Ontario to Brantford, Ontario at the time. Literally, our database for that was right down to the municipal level of inviting every single municipal official that we could within that environment, plus the elected officials municipally here in Toronto. So we wasted no effort at all in contacting everyone, but to our knowledge, none of them showed up, although some key media from that area really did, which was very interesting.
I want to get back to the media for a second, because I find it interesting that, number one, that you got very good attention on this. I saw it way out here on the West Coast. And, when it's going national like that, that's the attention that you were trying to bring. Whether or not people are rolling their eyes at you guys or saying you're wasting your time or your money or your efforts, because there's always the cynical people out there. When you had a chance to talk to some of these media members who maybe have never been informed of this type of information, and if you were off the record with them, because that's when the good chatter really happens, could you give us maybe a little bit of insight on what those conversations were like?
Your question is probably the best one that I've ever been asked. Congratulations, you hit the nail on the head. When I spoke to, and I was on my way to Brantford, Ontario, okay, well, I was driving in the car and my phone was on, and I'm just driving down there with a colleague, and doesn't the darn phone ring as we're driving down in the car on the 401, and it's someone from the CBC.
Wow.
Tick, 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 tick. Ponder that for a second. He identified himself. And he said, I'm interested in finding out what's going on in Brantford, Ontario, and what can you tell me? And I was absolutely, you're driving down on the highway, you're doing 110 clicks or whatever it is, and you're going to call up from the CBC. This doesn't happen very often.
No, it does not.
No, it does not. So I spent the next, I'm not sure how long it was, 15, 20 minutes, as I'm driving to Brantford, talking to this individual reporter about what we were doing, why we were doing it, and the implications. And his response, he's a very good, he's a very good listener, asked some really good questions, but what really struck me was his response. He said, your research seems so very thorough, and your information is so dense, because he read through it. He said, how long has this been going on that we don't know about it? And that really, I said, well, it's your own fault. We've been putting this information out for you in spades for the last 10 years. And you haven't paid attention to it. And all of a sudden, now you're interested? Well, pay attention, because the good stuff is yet to come. And their indolence in not dealing with the earlier promulgations or promotions of this stuff, they're paying the price right now by being totally incredulously unbelievable about the whole phenomenon, but now they're picking up information that there is something to this. Now they're paying attention, and that dilemma is really kind of haunting the mainstream media right now. They know the information, but everything they've been told before not to cover it is counteracting their interest in pursuing the issue.
How blown away was this CBC reporter? And for people who don't know who the CBC is, that's Canada's national broadcaster, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
Goes coast to coast, from Vancouver right to St. John's, Newfoundland. So, you're talking millions of people with access to the information that we were putting out, and that's pretty significant. So, in that sense, I'm not sure what your question was in regard to that, but the fact is, it was promoted through all the CBC outlets, or they had access to it.
And the one thing that I enjoyed about that as a reporter was those behind-the-scenes conversations when the microphone was off and you were just kind of chatting like two human beings, not one person telling a story that you have to read between the lines, and you not being the pesky journalist asking the questions. But when you're having that conversation, this guy or woman who you spoke to, were they saying anything to do with the fact that they're not really told to cover these types of stories, or that they were told not to report on them?
No, I never got that feeling, to be really honest with you. And I think that really points to the lower level permission that's given to regional news outlets to cover this stuff, and they will allow it to be kind of promulgated at the and I'll go back to the whole idea of what I said earlier of the regional coverage. The problem would be is getting this information and putting it on what we call the National. The National is the CBC's major news broadcast that goes, coast to coast. And it has, 3, 4, 5 million listeners at any given time. So information on that kind of network would be received by the government and by the CBC itself as totally revolutionary. But then again, their affiliates at the regional level have implicit permission to publish whatever they want on this. So we've got a glass ceiling happening here. They'll allow it at the regional level, but it's never allowed to go beyond and into the national level of coverage with the 30 to 35 to 40 million people that have access to the CBC here in Canada. So it's a very, very kind of strategic kind of control that we feel is going on, because we got the coverage at the regional level, but it won't go, or it's refused to be covered nationally.
Do you think that's a fault of just the news directors thinking, once again, it's Saturday or Sunday filler rather than a story, or do you think that this goes higher up than that, Victor?
Oh man, what a great question again. Well, the only thing that I can say about that, to be really honest with you, is that I don't think the Canadian media has been told in one sort of fell swoop not to cover this issue, because I just don't think they're in the big leagues. Okay. However, there is the implicit idea within the North American media that this stuff just doesn't get the kind of relevant coverage that it needs to get. And there's sort of an agreement at another level. And I think perhaps what your listeners need to do would be to go to and investigate or learn more about what we call Project Mockingbird. And if you Google Project Mockingbird and really look at some of the documents that are within that whole CIA initiative, and it was a CIA initiative, to kind of transform the UFO perception among the public. So that whole thing is goes back historically to kind of control the American media, and it did really. Disney, for example, was used to control media. So there's a lot within that. So in order for me to explain that, it would take another 2 hours, but your listeners could get a really good appreciation by looking at the documents within what was called the Mockingbird Project.
Sorry, I had to cough there for a second. When we went through this conference, for the people who haven't been there or weren't there, take us through, and it's not a conference, I apologize for using the C word, take us through what everybody went through and how the process worked.
Basically what happened was we began at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we had, if you could, picture a stage, like a courtroom setting, where there was a table with 7 witnesses, Paul Hellyer, the whole Grant Cameron, Stanton Friedman, Stephen Bassett, Richard Dolan, Travis Walton was there. So we had a whole array of experts at one table. And then facing that table was a table of 5 journalists who were tasked with the job of firing questions at each one of these experts. So what we had was each expert stood up, gave his testimony about his area of expertise. Stanton Friedman did stuff on MJ-12. Travis Walton talked about the abduction phenomenon. Richard Dolan talked about the secret space program. Each one of them did their part in presenting their own testimony within 7 minutes. And then these journalists have them sat down, and then they fired questions at each one of them to determine the relevance, the implications of some of the documents and testimony that they presented. So it was a really dynamic question period of like, can this possibly be true? And each one of the experts, definitely, as far as I'm concerned, prove without a doubt that the UFO issue is alive and well.
What kind of questions were they being asked? Were the reporters drilling them, like asking pointed questions, or were they throwing softballs to try and get the old, I was anal probed, whether it was Travis Walton or somebody like that? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. No, I was there. I witnessed each question, and most of the questions were on the side of, listen, this can't possibly be true. We need to find more corroborative evidence. Do you think that some of these, the videos that we're seeing, that we presented, the documents that we've been presenting are either forged, or redacted or whatever? A lot of really heavy-hitting questions. You're saying that there's bases underground. What's your evidence? Can you provide me with more information about that? So these were hard-hitting questions. None of the journalists, and when I was responsible for obtaining the journalists, and the initial probe that I sent out was, I want objective, non-partial people who want to challenge these experts. I want the hard questions. I don't want a believer. I don't want someone, as you say, who's going to, as you said, David, throw softballs at these people. I wanted hard-hitting journalists, and we went as far as to getting a CBC a meteorologist to be part of the panel, who has an interest in this whole issue. So CBC was there on the panel. And this is something that we think is very significant, because he got to ask the direct questions about what these things are that are sort of inundating our skies. And some of the questions were very specific about all of that kind of information. And there's no doubt that there's a certain point where there was some pressure being exerted on the witnesses to really come forward to kind of corroborate and justify their testimony.
Well, that's good to hear that that's what you wanted. That's exactly what you wanted from the media, is you wanted your panel to get a drilling, to be honest, of questions that were pointed and direct in regards to trying to bring proof of the subject together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really interesting that the confluence of the evidence and sort of this journalistic ambivalence towards the whole issue. You could really see that as soon as the journalists heard some of this really incredible testimony, and you could only, once again, have a look at the 2-hour video and some of the testimony, and they were sitting there. It's just jaw-dropping information. They're being told that the American government that's been elected has no idea what's going on, that there's a government behind the government. And these journalists, this is like totally no-brainer, non-information for them. They've never heard of this kind of dialogue before. And to watch, 5 good journalists, entertain the idea that NORAD actually has trackings of 1,800 unknown entities entering into our airspace each year for the last 5 years. These journalists have no idea about this information. So you can kind of understand how surprising, how jaw-dropping this information was when it's presented by 7 of these experts.
How blown away were they when they found out that, here in Canada, where we're fickle to a lot of things. Canadians are fickle, and we let a lot go off our back. We don't pay attention to a lot of things unless it's hockey, fishing season, or hunting season, and throw in a little bit of sports everywhere else around there and outdoor activities. But were they surprised to learn that Canada is right in the middle of all of this? We may not be a powerhouse in this field like the United States or Russia or Great Britain for that matter, but we're still a middle player in this, especially being part of North America.
Well, there's no doubt that we're right in the middle of the whole issue, not only because of what we did and exposing the hearing and presenting this whole inquiry, this national inquiry into the UFO situation, the first ever done here in Canada. And I think the government needs to pay attention to some of the issues that we raised. Now, in terms of how Canada is viewed internationally with respect to this issue, it's quite clear that Canada is in possession of some of the most crucial files with respect to this whole issue. So, in one sense, because of our size, it appears that we play sort of an inconsequential role in this whole thing. I would argue to just the opposite, that we have here in Canada the freedom of the press that's not available in the States, in the United States. Our media is not as underpinned as they are. So one of the reasons why we did what we did is that we realized that the Canadian media is much more amorphous to all of this. It's much more absorbent, which is evidenced by some of the calls we got from CTV and CBC and the other coverage. They're more open to the whole idea, and the idea that we as a Canadian theater could really open up this issue is very, very exciting, because even the most important conferences that occur in the United States, and they occur like week after week after week, none of them, and I repeat, none of them hit the national media in the way that we did. So with respect to the potential of what we did, we feel that this can be built upon as a stepping stone to having the Canadian media realize that they have a role in disclosure, that they have a role in providing information to the rest of our country with respect to the extraterrestrial presence. So that's what we're trying to establish.
You mentioned that Canada is holding crucial information on this. I even find this surprising, even though I know we have one of the largest military bases in the world up in Cold Lake, Alberta, bigger than Nellis Air Force Range. I think it's about 3 or 4 times the size of Nellis Air Force Range, where Area 51 is. There's a lot of places in Canada, because we're so underpopulated, where the military can hide this type of phenomenon. You know, whether it's Sheffield, whether it's Cold Lake, whether it's in the northern part of Ontario where there's a lot of trees near Thunder Bay. Is that going on? Are we hiding our own UFO secrets?
You know what? I really wish I could tell you something definitive on that in terms of, time, place, and date with respect to craft or whatever. I will state categorically that I have received virtually zero information on those kinds of things at an official level. However, in saying that, I have had anecdotal information brought forward to me that indicates that the whole idea of what these black triangles are all about are more prevalent here in Ontario than anyone would ever suspect. So, it's sort of a double-edged sword in one way. There's no information in one respect, but we have some anecdotal information that these triangle craft, are much more prevalent over the Great Lakes and some parts of southern and northern Ontario than one would imagine. And I've had myself personally 3 reports of a triangle craft being reported here in Ontario. So with respect to how local is it, boy, if you pay attention to some of the reports, it's pretty specific, David.
What are those reports saying? Because you have NORAD reports in your files about how many interceptions there are, about how they're going to keep this quiet. Could you explain those NORAD reports?
Yeah. Okay. Boy, how long is a piece of string? It all goes back to an initial access to information request that I made of the Ministry of National Defense, and they sent me back a whole bunch of gobbledygook, basically, because the wording behind what I requested wasn't specific enough. So they basically sent me back a letter that said, you got to be more specific in what you're requesting. You know, like how do you put a piece of rope through a needle? You know, that kind of thing. Right. The eye of a needle. Yeah, so you have to really whittle down your request to something very specific. So I put something together that was very, very specific, and I got back 117 pages of absolute gold. It was incredible. And within that was one NORAD report. I asked for all evidence or any files that indicated that Canadian forces or NORAD jets were scrambled to chase or to intercept or be scrambled to intercept craft of unknown origin. And that was my request to them. And that rung the bell. That was the one that really rung the bell. And I got back this one response that indicated that two CF-18s were scrambled in 2001 out of Comox Air Force Base to chase 3 unknown tracks. And the evidence behind the line-by-line description of what these 2 CF-18s went through and then eventually made contact with, was very specific and absolutely unadulterated in the file. So it is quite clear, based on that one incident, and then a letter that I received from the North American Aerospace Defense Command, otherwise known as NORAD, indicating that NORAD tracks, on an average, per year over the last 5 years, 1,800 tracks of unknown origin. 1,800 per year over the last 5 years. On top of that, in each year, there are 75 intercepts of whatever these unknowns are. So there's no description at all, A, of what the 1,800, entities might be, and then B, there's no description of what and how the 75 intercepts were made. So what did they intercept? Was it a bomber from Russia? Was it sort of some kid in Lake Superior flying a kite? What was it? But there's no description of these 75 intercepts of craft of unknown origin, which we find very, very to pursue. That what were these intercepts? We want to know what they were, how, why, when, and where.
Those 2 CF-18s in Comox, British Columbia, and I've been to Comox, that is a big base, and I'll tell you, there's nothing. If you've never been to Comox, British Columbia, they have a golf course right beside the Air Force Base called Crown Isle. And it's an amazing golf course. But I'll tell you, there is nothing scarier than when you are in your backswing about to tee off and a CF-18 hits the afterburners right over top of you, and because you don't hear it coming until it's already past you. Mm-hmm. And that happened to me twice that golf game, and I was okay with that, really. But these 2 fighters, did they intercept them over the ocean, or was it along the shorelines of the province?
No, it was over land. It was over solid land. This is between Manitoba, Ontario area. That's where it happened as these things were moving, and what was really enlightening about this, there was another jet in the area that picked up these 3 unidentified craft, and it was an LR-35, which is a medical evacuation jet that was out of Anchorage, Alaska. They were simultaneously flying in the same airspace. Totally inadvertent, and they reported to Comox Air Force Base that they visually saw, not on radar, but visually saw 3 objects, and they reported on their flight log. I've got it right here that we could not keep up with them. That's what it says in the flight log. Could not keep up with them, and this jet had to be flying at least 3,000 miles an hour, if not more, and the CF-18s were almost doubling that, and these craft we're easily eluding both. So we have two independent, totally and mutually exclusive sightings of this whole report. And it's only one of what I suspect are many, many more of the 1,800 that we're not being told about.
1,800 does seem like a very low number, Victor. It seems like a very low number when you think about it, that the military is intercepting, because literally every day we are seeing people are seeing UFOs, whether they're way up lights in the sky or whether they're down low. And to only intercept 1,800 of those, that's amazing that they're only picking up on radar that few.
Well, yeah, that's a good question. There may be more, there may be less. Who knows? I mean, when they say, and in the basically what I'm saying is that in the report that I was given, that it says, however, the NORAD commander has approved. I'm reading from the text here. The release of the following information regarding tracks of unknown origin, TOIs, and unknown tracks. The yearly average in the past 5 years has been 1,800 TOIs and 75 intercepts. And that's all the information that we have to go on. I mean, for the commander of NORAD to approve the release of that information, even though the number might be 1,800. I mean, who knows how much more or less that it really is? We have no way of knowing. But the fact that they actually acknowledged that they've had 1,800 intercepts of some kind, not intercepts, but at least trackings, and then 75 intercepts. The key there is these 75 intercepts. What are they intercepting? What are they doing with them? Are they letting them fall to the ground because they're meteors, or letting them pass through because they're Russian aircraft that are cheating on our airspace, or are they extraterrestrial vehicles? I mean, there can't be any other 3 or 4 other alternatives there. So the fact of the matter that it's not the number of 1,800 that we're concerned about. It's those 75 intercepts that really make the difference. And say, okay, do you have any gun camera evidence of what you're intercepting? Yes or no? Did you bring down any of these aircraft and guide them to a landing spot on Canadian airspace? Yes or no? These are the questions that we have to ask about these 75 intercepts. Hello.
Victor, could you not go through a Freedom of Information inquiry to try and get the cockpit voice recordings of that?
I would suppose that I could. Either voice recordings or other flight log information in terms of gun camera stuff. I guess I could, yeah, probably, but this stuff takes a lot of time. This first request took me over half a year, 6 months, nearly 5 months. So, in moving forward with this, I guess the better question is, in moving forward, how much more information do we really need? Let's not fool ourselves here. Let's be realistic. Like, you present one level of evidence, and then people ask for more. And then you present that level of evidence, and people ask for more. That's bullshit. I'm sorry to say that publicly. We need to pay attention to the information that we have and move on it, and not be in the constant mode of saying, no, give me more. I need more information as a media analyst or as a whatever, as a, that is a circular argument that has been injected into this whole issue for over 70 years. The time for putting forward more and more and more evidence has ended. We've got more than enough evidence to prove what's going on. So this is all part of the strategy of mainstream media to say, no, we need more. And as I say to you once again, and I want to be blunt, it's all bullshit.
Well, the thing is, you even look at what's happening in the electoral process of the United States. All of a sudden, the whole alien phenomena thing has really been dropped on Hillary's campaign. And it's only been the ufologists and the so-called conspiracy theorists who have been relaying this message for well over a year and a half, almost 2 years now, since John Podesta quit as the right-hand man to President Obama. And it wasn't only until May when the media decided, oh, we may have a story here. You know, so it's something that I find very, very intriguing that they're dropping the ball on something along those lines. Now, your opinion on that?
Well, the whole idea of what has been sort of presented in terms of Podesta and Hillary, having an interest in all this, it has a history, and that history, I'm not going to go through it because it's just, there's 4 or 5 minutes at the top of the hour. But if you take a look at the Rockefeller files and what happened with Grant Cameron's investigation, with the Rockefeller files, and you'll find out all the letters that transpired between Lawrence S. Rockefeller and the Clinton administration. John Podesta was involved with that too. So there's that people have to look into. But now, when you go back into why Hillary is doing this, has stated that her interest in bringing it forward, and why Podesta has raised the issue. It's not a matter of whether or not they will be able to release the files. That I don't think is the issue. You know what the issue is? The fact that they're even talking about it. Exactly. That's the issue. That's the issue. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. I know it's true. I know what's going on. I know something's going on. I don't know what it is, but I know something's going on. But for the major candidate for the President of the United States stating that I'm at least talking about this issue, wow, that's got to be a shoe dropper. I don't care in anybody's books. Whether she can come clear with producing files, I don't know. I mean, maybe she will or maybe she won't. But the fact that her and Podesta are raising the issue is of immense proportion within this election, and no one's talking about it. And that's the other side of the coin. You're not going to find Donald Trump attacking Hillary Clinton about talking about UFOs and aliens. I mean, as soon as he does, this case is closed.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I have a question from the Revolution Radio chat room here from a gentleman named Thunderbird. He is wondering what you know about Project Magnet, among others, and your UFO research, because he had quite an experience between Calgary and Banff a number of years ago. Well,
Project Magnet was a very interesting spin-off of the work of Wilbert Smith. And Wilbert Smith was a senior, I'm trying to think of senior executive, senior technologist with Science Canada, and with Transport Canada, and he was given the task because he raised the issue about UFOs. He did raise this issue back in the 50s and 60s as to what these things might be, and the Canadian government at the time was naive enough to give him a laboratory up at it's called Shirley's Bay up here in Ontario, and he was tasked with the job of looking at what the propulsion systems of these UFOs might be. And Project Magnet was the initial funding mechanism through which he went through. And he had some preliminary findings about all this, but as you would probably guess, the project was closed down. And Wilbert Smith published things about it, but it was never recognized as anything authentic within any of the documentation. So Project Magnet was in fact a government-funded operation. What they came up with, what they're hiding, what they've released, what they've destroyed is anyone's guess. But the fact of the matter is, Project Magnet was a real and authentic and government-sanctioned project within Canada.
That's something I'll have to do a little bit more research in. I was unfamiliar with that.
Yeah.
So realistically, how do you think the Canadian government gets away with being so silent on all of this? Is it because we've just never questioned it, or do we consider that a United States topic?
Well, it's like anything else within this. There's a multiple set of answers to that question. how the Canadian government gets away with it is participating in the conspiracy of silence. You just don't respond. You just don't talk about it. You don't even give it any kind of credence. And that's when I go back to what I stated earlier within our conversation, that the media keeps this at the local level. They will not permit it to go to the national level. And that's where the government is at with respect to this. And they just don't enter into any kind of overt massive media response. So if I publish something into a newspaper or even a request directly to the government, to the Minister of Defense, it will never go beyond just my request. It won't rise to the level of notoriety as the front pages. Minister of Defense responds to a UFO critic. You'll never see that in the front page of the Toronto Star or the Globe and Mail or the National Post. You just won't see that. You may see it in a local newspaper, or you may hear it on a local, radio station, but you will not hear it at a national level. So, with respect to the Canadian government and why they can kind of keep such a low profile, it's just by not commenting on anything with respect to this. It's just the flames are doused right away. So you're not going to get Justin Trudeau making any kind of public statements about the fact that NORAD, tracks 1,800 unknowns per year over the last 5 years and intercepts 75 per year. You're not going to find Justin Trudeau making any kind of comment on that at all. And he will be coached to say, Prime Minister, you don't talk about that. That's a non-issue. It's off the table.
On that note, we'll get more into Justin Trudeau and politics at the Vatican with Victor Viggiani right after this break. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, news director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions.
Have you ever wondered about those weird and strange creatures people have reported throughout history? Do you wonder if those stories are real? Me too, and that's why I started Cryptopia.us. Hey, this is Rob Morphy, crypto historian. Join me once a month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will get into the odd and bizarre reports, from the Dover Demon to hairy hominids and everything in between. I will break down what people like you and me are seeing at spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy. And I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com/rivuletrndr.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness. You can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium, Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us as we talk UFOs, disclosure, and the Vatican with Victor Viggiani. Before we bring Victor back on, if you're an SOR space traveler, your password has been set by Bill Cardwell. Bill Cardwell's password is surreptitiously. He finally gets a password I can pronounce. Surreptitiously is your password, so make sure you use it wisely. Tomorrow night on the show, we're going to have a very interesting show. Bill Hauser is going to be with us. If you haven't heard Bill on Spaced Out Radio before, you're in for a treat. We are going to be doing live ghost box sessions for the full show tomorrow night. Bill is an expert at the ghost box, and we will be doing live sessions during the show. I wasn't a believer in it until I heard the Ghost Box session on the second time we tried it actually say my real last name. And when it's long in Ukrainian, you don't expect that to happen. And it's freaked me out. So we're going to do that tomorrow night again. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, you can sign up for the SOR Space Travelers Club. It only equals out to about $5 a month. With that, you get your name put into monthly prize draws, access to a private section on our website, and so much more. Read our latest blogs. Check out our music band, the guitar god Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, and the SOR Spacewire for your weird and wacky news. We bring Victor Viggiani back into Spaced Out Radio Land now. Victor, welcome back.
Great to be with you again. Boy, you got a lot going on.
Oh, you know what? I try. You know, I think I've maxed it out, though. I'm at about 17, 18 hours a day right now.
Is that all? Oh, my goodness. You poor soul, you.
I think I've tapped it out time-wise. So eventually I'm going to have to check our audience to see if we have any volunteers who want to join up with the team to take some of this load off of me. But right now I'm doing okay.
You know what? I understand exactly what you're going through, and I'm serious about this, because the kind of stuff you're doing, if you are doing what you're doing as much as what's indicated, that's very draining. I mean, even what I do on a day-to-day basis, and I do a lot of radio work and just my own recording stuff. It's very draining, David. You can't sustain it and remain relevant. And that's the whole problem with this issue, or these and other related issues. You can only delve into these to a certain point before the fabric of your whole being becomes just like, oh, God, I can't do this again. And it's so overwhelming that you at some point you have to back off. Do you ever get that feeling?
At times, I'll be honest with you, at about 12:15 last night or early this morning, whatever way you want to look at it, I had that. I totally had that. And, what keeps me going, though, is the fact that, number one, we're the only Canadian show out there that is going 7 days a week, because I have a weekend host as well. And the thing is, if I don't do it, because, as I've told you before, I'm only doing this because I can't find answers to my own experiences, and with a radio background, this is how I know how to try and come close to what I've experienced, by bringing on people such as yourselves. Right. But on a selfish note, and a hopeful note at the same time, you hope that one set of ears hears you. That they like what you're doing, they like that you have that radio background, you know what radio means, that radio, I'm a firm believer that radio is not dead, and you hope that one set of ears, Victor, just all of a sudden says, hey, this is the show we got to build around.
And when I do the conspiracy show with Richard Serrett, Richard has his own program, as you probably know, on AM 740 here in Toronto, and we go on, and I deal with all issues. Whenever any issue related to UFOs comes up, I'm the one who produces it. And Richard does his own thing, three weekends out of 4, but I come up with at least one show a month that has to do with the UFO issue, and he gives me free rein. And his whole idea behind what we do in terms of the UFO issue and the other issues that he raises too, is theater of the mind. And that's the whole idea behind radio. Radio creates your own images of what's going on. Television provides it for you. It's a real subtle difference. And that's why I feel that radio is so much more powerful in relaying this message to people on a consistent basis and in an intelligent manner. Because you don't get a whole lot of intelligent discourse about this issue. Get a lot of mind-numbing stuff in some ways, but if you really try to create an ambiance where people can perceive the paranormal, and I'm using that in the most general terms, as encompassing everything, the UFO ET issue is the number one issue with the relationship with the paranormal. And that whole idea of awakening society through radio is much more powerful in my sense than even in television. Television will get its place, but the first place this will happen It will be on radio, David. I guarantee it.
And you know, the other thing that a lot of people forget about radio, it will never die. Is it a dying industry for listenership?
No.
Yes,
No.
but it'll never die because in case of a disaster, those signal towers that are connected to radio are so important to get that message out that you have to keep it going. Even if your listenership is down to, say, from, in a major market, down from 1 million people a day down to 100.
Right. Yeah,
it's the only way that that message is going to be able to get out there.
Exactly.
So that's the hope.
You know, I think that most people really don't understand the lifeline of what radio really means. And that you've really hit the nail on the head in describing how internalized the radio has become in terms of communication. And if things go down, radio will be our last bastion. It will be. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You know, it will be even the simplest AM signal.
Absolutely,
will be the kernel of. So I mean, it's something really important. And are you aware? And I want to really bring this attention to your listeners of the passing and the death of Errol Bruce Knapp.
No,
Errol Bruce Knapp was a major figure here in Canadian ufology. He was on CFRB radio, the largest AM radio station in Canada, with the program called Strange Days Indeed. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
That one I am, yes. Now it's coming back.
That's right. Now, Errol and I were on that program every Sunday night. You know, he began the radio program, and after, I think, 1 year of an episode, I joined him as a co-host. And Errol Bruce Knapp was the leading aficionado of UFO related radio on the largest AM station here in Canada. And we went through everybody from John Mack to Dan Sheehan to Richard Dolan to all the experts right through the whole UFO. So he had the courage to bring this thing forward in a way. He passed away on, I believe it was August the 25th at the age of 73, unfortunately. And we really mourn the loss of Errol. And there's going to be a memorial, I believe, sometime in September about his life and what he left with us. So it's a really sad note that we kind of report the passing of any of your listeners who are familiar with Errol Bruce Knapp.
Right before the break, you mentioned Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think he knows on this topic, or even his predecessor, Stephen Harper, knew about the UFO topic?
Well, there's two levels of the answer to that question. There's the political, what he's been told or what he's been told about or not told about this whole issue, what both of them, and I'll put them both together, what they've been briefed about this issue. That's one level. And I can get into what I would perceive what that level would be. The second level would be on a personal level. My sense that Stephen Harper would have had absolutely no interest in pursuing this issue with respect to his own personal life at all. Justin Trudeau being 43 years old, I would imagine that our Prime Minister here in Canada has at least once or twice either been, sent an email, done some Googling about the issue of UFOs. I'm almost convinced that anyone of that era, of that age that he's at right now, would have been aware of the fact that there is an issue surrounding, extraterrestrial presence or extraterrestrial whatever, and the whole idea of UFOs. So my sense is that he is personally aware of it, may not take it seriously, and politically, what he's been told, my sense is that he's been told just not to say anything about it. Don't make any comment about it. The Canadian government is not going to make any kind of declarative statements about UFOs, so let's just follow what the preceding administrations have done with respect to this issue and just keep quiet. That's my sense of what's going on both levels.
Let's get to a couple questions from the Space Out Radio listeners here before we start getting into Vatican talk. Joe is asking in the SOR Space Travelers, Victor, have you ever had a UFO experience?
I'm going to say a qualified yes. It's not something that I was sitting in my backyard, watching the night sky. No, that didn't happen. In 1996, my wife and I did a tour of Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada, and we spent 6 nights outside of Area 51. 3 nights to begin with at the beginning of our tour, and we traveled through New Mexico, and then came back for another 3 nights under the skies in Nevada near Area 51, right by Groom Lake Road on the whole Tikaboo Valley. The last 3 nights, we were there, and I saw something that was totally inexplicable. I don't know if it's extraterrestrial, but I know for sure it was not a regular craft. We witnessed, jets flying across the sky at a very slow pace. They were moving maybe 500 or 600 miles an hour. That's pretty fast, but it's pretty slow when you look at it in terms of the night sky. The object that I viewed moved at lightning speed. This was nothing like anything I've ever seen before. So that description I'm not going to go into right now, but it was totally different than anything we could ever imagine in terms of lights in the sky and what went on there. So it was very specific in our being there. So that's the kind of personal experience that I went through to realize that this might not have been an extraterrestrial craft. I'm convinced that it was not. But it was definitely, absolutely something totally different than any kind of craft that I would associate with the United States Air Force experimenting with. This thing moved in ways that no aircraft that I could ever witness could do. And I fly airplanes. I have a private pilot's license, and I know what craft can do. This craft did nothing like any aircraft that I was ever associated with.
I had my last UFO sighting on August 3rd. It was after this show.
Whoa.
And I had, it was probably about 12:15 at night, West Coast time, and usually after the show, I'll give Eric Markham, our SOR Spacewire news director, a phone call, and we'll kind of break down the show because I always like to do that. And I'm standing outside, nice clear night, and way, way off in the distance in the northeast, I had this flash happen. You hear about these power-ups that they do.
Oh, yeah.
I had one of those power-ups. And I said, wow, haven't seen one of you in about a year. Can you do it again, please? Bang, power up again, and then off. And then I said, thank you. I said, could I have another one? Bang, on. And this happened 4 or 5 times. And Eric's on the other end of the line saying, wow, I wish I could see this. I'm like, yeah, man. I said, this is kind of cool. I said, let me try something. I said, can you come over my house? And this thing in the distance, I'm going to say 40, 50 miles away. Okay, because you could see a long ways in the night sky when it's clear sky.
Of course.
And all of a sudden I said, can you fly this way, please, and come closer? Bang, light on. And then it went off for a while. And then I said, where are you? Can you flash again? Next thing I know, it flashes closer on a trajectory to my house. And it changed its color from bright white. This time it went to red. When it flashed red a couple of times, and the trajectory...
Red or orange?
Well, by the time it flew over my house, about 4 minutes later, that light was orange.
Orange. Okay, I'm glad you said that. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah. So in a 4-minute span, I got about 15, 16 power-ups from about 40 miles away until it went right over my house, flashed orange about 4 or 5 times over my house, and then left. Totally on my communication. Could not believe it. Had not had that happen in a long time. I was actually excited about it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's incredible, because, I mean, the fact that you manifested it is probably more important than the actual sighting itself.
Yeah, I don't know why.
That's incredible that you would actually manifest that kind of thing. That's because the experience that I had, I don't think I manifested it, but it was a white light, and the white light turned into a spinning triangle of orange lights. It just the white light became three separate dots of orange, or orangey reds, almost like what you described, and it began to spin and shot off in a direction like it just blinding speed. So I don't know. It's just mind-boggling what can be seen if one is an observer of these kinds of things. I mean, it's just almost a once in a lifetime thing.
Well, it still trips me out. It wasn't the first time that has happened, but it still trips me out when it does. I have a question from Spear in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker.
Shoot.
Why is the color so important? You sounded worried there for a moment.
The color?
Yeah, the color of the light, the flash.
Oh, only because I was surprised. My sense was that when this object manifested itself to begin with, it was like a smaller version of a full moon, small one, but translucent. You could almost see through it. Mm-hmm. And then as that light was there, it became more intense, and then became these three solid lights of orange. And I can kind of go. It was orange. It wasn't red. They were definitely orange. It was that really, whatever that color is. And as it spun, it became the dense white light again, and that's when it shot off in the other direction. So, I'm not sure why I was surprised by the color, but the color was definitely orange and not red.
Yes, in the lower mainland of British Columbia near Vancouver, it's all orange lights for the most part. I don't know what it is about the orange lights, and we're talking the color orange that almost looks like the street lamps, that color orange. And the only conclusion I can come up with that is camouflage, because if people are looking up, they see the orange street lights around, that are supposed to be better for visibility at night instead of white. And if you put an orange light up in the sky, the chances are you're going to think, well, maybe that's a street light or something. You know what I'm saying? That's the only conclusion I can come with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
People want to get to the Pope. What does the Pope know about UFOs? What's Francis hiding on us?
Oh my goodness, that's not a fair question. Don't throw that at me that blindly. No, you're right. It's not Pope Francis necessarily right now. In one way, it is, because he's opening the doors for a dialogue. But when you take a look at what the Vatican has been through over the past 35 or 40 years, since approximately 1954, you have to understand that the Vatican has known about this issue for a long, long time. And once again, I'm going to make some categorical statements here, and I will make them very, very clearly. But it will be up to your audience to investigate them on their own. I'm not saying that what I'm preferring to you or proffering to you is the truth. All I'm saying is that there is evidence that people need to investigate in order to understand this issue. Okay? That's all. I'm a teacher, and I will instruct. I'm not going to tell you the way it is. I will lead you to a point where you may want to investigate more. And that's where your own conclusions will be set. I'm not trying to convince anybody about what this issue is all about. I'm just pointing you in a certain direction so that people will understand they've got to do their own investigation. That's what education is all about. And that's why the mainstream media and generally speaking, to be really honest with you, David, most of these UFO conferences, they're just sort of so bent on, give me proof. Give me proof. No. Give me investigation, give me education, give me people exploring the issues on their own, yes. And that's what's lacking here. So if you want to question some of my presuppositions about this, all you have to do is reference the information that I'll give you. And the first one I'm going to give you is very, very clear. Very clear. And people need to really look at the exopolitical version of the Vatican preparing a statement on extraterrestrial life. And it describes what Pope Francis is really saying about this issue. He's saying, essentially, that this is something that we have to look at. He said that to the scientific symposium in Rome, I think about a year and a half ago. So he said that very clearly. Just as there are many creatures on Earth, there are many creatures in the universe. For the Pope to say something like that is really, really transformative. And then on top of that, the director, the former director, and the director of the observatory in Rome has said that the UFO issue, the extraterrestrial issue, is something that we must look at. So the Vatican is putting forward all kinds of information through the many different Jesuit sources. Underline the word Jesuit, David. Jesuit order, who's putting this information forward. And that's really important because the Jesuit order has always been an order within the Catholic ministry who's been in charge of major change within the Vatican.
There was some talk that, I don't know how much you believe in that Russian alien book that came out a number of years ago, whether it's real or fake. I remember talking to Alfred Lambermont Weber about it, and he believes there is real proof behind that book. But there was also talk that a couple of popes, including John Paul, had actually met with extraterrestrial species. Have you ever heard that?
I've heard some talk about, papal figures meeting with extraterrestrials, and to be really honest with you, my understanding. How far back can I go with this? To be really honest with you, I can't pick out the actual pope involved, but there has been discussions about popes meeting with extraterrestrials. I don't have any information whatsoever that either that occurred or that it is something that the Vatican and within the papacy is talking about. There are other things that they have talked about, but actually with a pope meeting with extraterrestrials, nope, that has not something that I would really kind of say is evidentiary in my books.
It amazes me that the walls around the Vatican and Vatican City, which is technically its own country within Italy, that they have this surplus of historic knowledge, whether it's to do with religion and the birth or death of Jesus Christ. They could prove it. They could prove it if they wanted. Okay, and they could prove if God exists if they wanted. They obviously must have a section as they are starting to open up more towards astronomy and looking out into the heavens. They must have a large section in the Vatican of books or some sort of reports that cardinals have written or scholars have written in regards to this topic.
Yeah, well, there's some very interesting information on that. We know that during the Carter administration, a program was set up to investigate the whole idea of UFOs and extraterrestrials. And Daniel Sheehan, who was the lead lawyer counsel for the Jesuit community in the United States, was tasked with the responsibility of going to the Vatican to ask the Vatican about this whole issue, because Jimmy Carter was very interested in it. And Daniel Sheehan, being a lawyer, through the Jesuit associations that he had, because he was their general counsel for several years during the Carter administration, he asked the Vatican directly for access to their files regarding UFOs and extraterrestrials. And he sent a formal letter through the Nuntiate in Rome and all of the formal conduits that you have to go through. And Daniel was denied access to this information. He was told point blank that no, that the Vatican would not permit him to look at these sets of information, whatever he's requesting. So he made, under, once again, Jimmy Carter's direction, who was the president at the time, a second initiative. Say, well, you know what? Maybe you don't understand who we are, or we're reporting on this for the president of the United States. So we would really like to have access to your files on. And he was denied a second time. It's not like it was not met with silence. He was denied officially. So you have to wonder, what is the Vatican hiding? So after that, in 2008, Father Gabriel Funes, who was the director of the Science Observatory in Rome, Gandolfo, made statements that if extraterrestrials really exist, extraterrestrials are my brother, and that they are intelligent creatures within the universe who are experiencing and falling out of sin with original sin. So, that sounds like a pretty kind of prosaic statement, but once again, the question has to be asked, why is the Vatican raising the issue of extraterrestrials and UFOs? And they've become clearly through all the dialogue with Father Funes that they're very interested in this whole idea of extraterrestrials. And it's quite interesting why they become entwined. It's almost to the level, David, that the Vatican has taken the place of the United States as being a serious parallel conduit through which disclosure could occur, because I'm convinced, and a lot of other scholars are convinced, that the Vatican has more information on UFOs than the government has of the United States.
And this leads right into Claudia's question in the SOR Space Travelers. Do you think the Vatican has made contact with extraterrestrial species?
Well, I go back to the story, and it's well documented by Grant Cameron, about Muroc Air Force Base in 1954, whereby President Dwight Eisenhower, at the time, left his ranch in California to go to Muroc Air Force Base within California. And all his records indicate he went for a dental appointment, but these are fabricated. The date, February 21st in 1954, was unavailable. It's not in the Eisenhower library. And the reason I know that is because I've requested information about what happened on February 21st and 22nd. Apparently, Dwight D. Eisenhower went to Muroc Air Force Base and experienced and met with extraterrestrials. And at that time, a cardinal was present with him because he asked for the presence of Cardinal Francis McIntyre. And he was also there, apparently, when Dwight D. Eisenhower met with extraterrestrials. Big story, hard to believe, but this is the documentation. And then after that, the Cardinal, Francis McIntyre, was committed to go to the papacy, to actually go to Pope Pius XII at the time in 1954 and tell him about his encounter with extraterrestrials. So he got on a plane with an attempt to fly to Rome. This flight from the Muroc Air Force Base to Rome was intercepted by an agency of the American intelligence system, brought down and landed, and FBI agents entered the plane and told Bishop McIntyre that he would not go to the Pope and talk about this. And the Pope was not to be informed about any information. Bishop McIntyre, Cardinal McIntyre, at the time said, "No, I will not comply with your information." He flew directly to Rome after that and informed the Pope that he had met with extraterrestrials. Now, this is all chronicled in several articles by Grant Cameron. Whether you not understand, perceive, or understand that issue could be one of the underpinnings as to how the Vatican has been in charge of this issue for more than 60 or 70 years. That's my conviction. That's my personal conviction. And that the SIV, the Servizio Intelligenza del Vaticano, is more powerful than the CIA.
Incredible. I knew there was a cardinal with Eisenhower.
Yeah.
Because and I think this was staged because on Air Force One at that time, Eisenhower actually had the airplane, because it wasn't a jet at that time, stop in Chicago to pick up the cardinal before they made their way to California.
Did not know that. That is incredible information. That is. Are you certain of that?
I have been told that on good word, yes.
My goodness. If you get any corroboration of that, that will solidify this case beyond repute. Anyway, so go on. Yes, go.
And the other point that I heard on this, and I'm trying to remember the source, but I mean, this has gone off on such a different tangent, I wasn't sure. But apparently, when they were standing, waiting for the UFOs to land at what is now known as Beale Air Force Base, I believe, in California,
right?
Everybody else was told to face the other direction. And only a couple of generals, this cardinal that Eisenhower trusted and Eisenhower himself, were allowed to face, let's say, north, to watch this ship come in. So it was very interesting indeed in regards to the whole tie-in, because the whole Eisenhower incident, which I believe is true, would 100% then tie in the Vatican to ufology.
Of course. I mean, it's a non-sequitur. And then, when you look at this incident that you're describing, along with Father Funes and Brother Consumiolo's descriptions, or at least public statements about the whole issue, I mean, you have to be a fool to think that the Vatican is not involved in this. You'd have to be a fool.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. But how much are they hiding? Who knows?
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, how do you get to that? I mean, that's the really frustrating part about this. It's just, there's so many enigmatic. You know what my metaphor is here, and I think people need to really understand this. It's like you go to the store and you buy a puzzle. The big, huge jigsaw puzzles with 1,000 pieces in a box.
Yeah.
Okay, you buy a box. You buy a box of this, and you bring it home. And you dump it on the dining room table. And the only problem is, there's no picture on the box. You don't know how to assemble the puzzle.
Exactly.
That's the conundrum that we are faced with, David. We have got this huge number of pieces of a puzzle, and we've nothing to kind of frame it around, to compare it to put it together with. And that's why this whole issue is so very, very complex. And that's why we're criticized roundly, because we don't have the continuity of information that media expects. Our continuity of information is so sporadic, is so dissimulated, that it's hard to put it all together. And that's why we're criticized, because we can't put it together in one whole consorted piece that makes sense, and we're still establishing what those pieces are. But the big thing is, once we get all these pieces into the puzzle assembled, it will be incontrovertibly understandable that we are being engaged by off-world civilizations, and that's the whole key message here. I don't care what the Vatican says. I don't care what Hillary Clinton will want to. That doesn't matter. Is when all the pieces of this puzzle come together, the conclusion will be We are being engaged by off-world civilizations. Bottom line. And end of story.
What did you think of, or what was your opinion? Because I've had this question asked a couple of times by two different people now. What is your opinion then on the new telescope that the Vatican has purchased? And of all names they choose the name Lucifer.
Lucifer, yes. Yeah. Well, you know what? I have a very good friend of mine who lives in New York. He's a Catholic priest, and he has spoken to me. And he's a scriptural expert, for lack of a better word. I mean, he knows scripture better than anyone that I know. And in any case, he understands, as do many scholars within the Catholic Church, as they understand that Lucifer is not the devil that we perceive he may be. He's not the ultimate evil. Okay? He was at one time purported to be on the scale of the same God that created the universe. The two of them were on the same table together. Okay? I mean, that's Lucifer and the entity we know as the one. They were the true, good and evil, or whatever you want, however you want. But Lucifer was not necessarily the evil one. And when you seek to understand what good and evil is all about, you have to have one without the other. And that's the whole dichotomy of what the Lucifer sort of connection would be, is that Lucifer may not be the entity of total evil. Lucifer may be the one who draws the goodness out of the God, out of the one who is the ultimate one. And if the ultimate one was just the one who he or she is, they would have no vested interest in doing anything. It takes Lucifer to draw the information from that oneness. And that's a very difficult understanding for most Christians to understand. You can't have one without the other. And the dichotomy of this whole ET UFO issue is exactly on the same plane. If you believe it is one thing, it is creatures from another planet or other planets, that's one perspective. But these beings could be from other dimensions, other ways of knowing that are totally different and not reachable in our own time frame. And that's the whole dichotomy of what's really going on here. It's good and evil, what's real and what's not real. And that's my whole take on it. If anyone at this point, David, really thinks that these extraterrestrials are from, they're parked, 7 light years away from us, that may be so. But my contention, and a lot of contentions within this, is that these beings are parked in other dimensions, in other realities from us. And that's generally, for the most part, too much for most people to swallow. Would you not admit that?
I think so, but I think on a world stage, it just adds to the whole mystique of the Vatican. Mm-hmm. You could have named it anything. You could have named it Peter, Paul, and Mary, or anything you want.
Right.
But to go with Lucifer, of all names, which most people out there depict as an evil name,
you gotta wonder.
It just absolutely flips everything on the side. And of course, in the Vatican tradition, this is what it is. Thank you very much, and we'll shut up now.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way it's a very good analogy or a good description, because that's the way the Vatican operates. It's ipso facto. Here's doctrine, swallow it or like it or swallow it. There's no other alternative. And for people who are of the Catholic persuasion, that's within their doctrine. This is not a universal doctrine. It's a Catholic doctrine. And when you talk about the Catholic community throughout the planet, it's a pretty big, but they really don't have the persuasion that they once had. The Vatican make as many statements as they want, but the majority of Catholics today don't pay attention to anything that the Vatican says. And then I'm being very critical here, and I'm a Catholic. I was brought up that way, but when the papacy makes statements about anything, doesn't matter what it is, 99% of the Catholics out there just disregard it completely as just propaganda or whatever. This is not, the Catholic Church is not what it once was in terms of traditional doctrine. Now, when it gets into other areas like this, making statements about extraterrestrials, then, my goodness, that's got to perk up people's interest. Like, why is the Catholic Church talking about extraterrestrials? Why? Is it truthful? Whatever. Doesn't matter. Why are they talking about it? That's the big question that I have.
JP has a question in the SOR Space Travelers. Father Crespi of Argentina was reputedly a very high-ranking Nazi. Do you, Victor, have any information on him? What happened to the artwork retrieved from Argentina? I realize it's way off, but I'm just reading it on the fly here.
Yeah, well, in fact, you're reading something on the fly that I have
I figured that. I should have edited that one. I apologize.
No, that's okay, David. No, because there's a lot of information out there, and your listener, the people that wrote that in, this is all part of the part, the parts that I was of the puzzle that I was talking about before. What your listener was just stating could be one of the parts of this puzzle. I don't know that, and that's how complex this issue is. When you hear about so many disparate pieces of information, you try to integrate it into what this reality really is. And people are discovering little bits of information all the time. And because that bit of information may not be corroborated, does not necessarily mean that it's irrelevant. It just means it's not part of the puzzle. So, I mean, I can say to to the person who put forward the question, no, don't make any presuppositions that your suppositions are wrong. Pursue that. Don't let it go. It's definitely significant.
Well, and you know what? That is probably the toughest subject I have had in trying to track someone down on, because I think if that story was ever proven, and I know we're off topic here, but if that story was ever proven that the Hitler and his top-ranking Nazi officials went over to Argentina, man, that would change the entire course of history.
It would create a rewrite with a capital R of history. There's no doubt about it. And I just don't have the time or the inclination or to follow that line of inquiry. It's tough enough to keep abreast of what's going on just with these people who are coming to us from other places. That's a full-time job. When I start investigating all the other stuff or even hearing about it, David, I'm just overwhelmed. I can't consume it. There's so many different aspects to what our history has been described to us about, our traditional history. And then when you bring in the alternative point of view, my goodness, you could spend all day. You could spend 24 hours a day for a month and not even, get to the core of the issues, of some of the other issues that are raised within this whole frame of the paranormal and what it's all about in terms of our human history. And it completely confuses me sometimes as to where you want to look for good, solid information.
Let me ask you this then. As a Catholic, are you offended or are you upset at all about what the Vatican may or may not be holding in their files regarding extraterrestrial life and UFOs?
Yeah, that's a good question. as a Catholic, brought up in the Catholic Church, sure, I can definitely reflect on that. My response initially would be that as an institution, the Church has to take the position of, well, we're not really sure, we don't really know, they could take that official position. But the question, I guess, eventually becomes, why are several of your astronomical associations, specifically the observatory Gandolfo, why are they looking at the planets? And why did Father Balducci making a statement about extraterrestrials? Why did Father Funes, who is the director of the observatory, make statements that extraterrestrials may be our brothers? And why all the commentary by the Catholic Church? Do you have any reason to give us that you would make these continuous statements as a Catholic entity about an extraterrestrial presence? And to this point, they've really not responded very well to that question. They make statements, but they don't know why they're making them. And that's my big problem with all of this. And that's one of the things that Danny Sheehan, who is a lawyer and advocate about this, is convening special sessions in California at Berkeley College about why the Vatican has to be more forthcoming about the UFO ET issue.
I still think it is something that the Vatican one of these days has to start giving up its secrets. I mean, if John the Baptist is buried under Vatican land, which they would know about, if they do know the true meaning of what the Shroud of Turin is, if they do know the true meaning of life or the goblet that Jesus drank from in the Last Supper, it's about time, because right now humanity needs it. Humanity needs some sort of vision and faith and truth in regards to everything, and the Vatican could do that. Do you think this Pope, Pope Francis, is the disclosure Pope?
I don't know if he will be the disclosure Pope. I don't know, because he's a young fellow. He really is, comparatively speaking. But what I sense about his whole quote-unquote administration as the Pope, and it's become very political. I mean, it's not just simply religious anymore. I think with what the observatory, the people in the Vatican Observatory have made statements about well before his papacy, and we don't need to really understand that Pope Francis is the first one. There have been other agents well before Pope Francis who made statements about extraterrestrials. That needs to be understood. So the Vatican is truly on side, irrespective of Pope Francis' influence, about talking any kind of dialogue about extraterrestrials. So it's very clear that this Pope is not the first one. Now, whether he will be able to open the dialogue further, I think that's something that we have to investigate. And I think Father Funes, the former director of the observatory, will be bringing forward within the next 18 to 16 months as a result of his meetings with a committee in Berkeley, California, in terms of what the Vatican will be investigating as a representative of the Vatican into this issue. And this is something that as Daniel Sheehan will be putting forward very, very soon, and you'll know much more about it in terms of what the Vatican has to say about this issue.
We only got a couple minutes left with you tonight, Victor, before we say goodnight to you and then welcome in Eric Cooper for hour number 3 to join me. Do you think that the Vatican will ease up on their stance of UFOs, or do you think they are someone who is also pushing for the silence, much like we see the U.S. government kind of admitting that it could be out there, they may have information, but they don't want to go full stream yet?
Well, I think the really quick answer to that is that the Vatican really needs to clarify what their stance is, because religiously, if they come forward with this as an issue in terms of just religion, they're going to be sunk. They're not going anywhere with this issue. What they have to do is entwine it with a global recognition that we're being engaged with extraterrestrials who may have some understanding what the God issue is. Who is God? What is the one? What is the ultimate force in the universe? And that's what I think the Vatican is most consumed by. Who is in charge of the universe? Who brought our existence into being? And that's what the Catholic Church is all about. If they can really kind of explain how the universe came into being through some sort of deity that might enhance their own position, that's one thing. But if it doesn't fall into that position, the Catholic Church has absolutely no leg to stand on.
Do you think that disclosure then is a U.S. job, or do you think it is something that it could be anybody of the sort who comes out?
You're the latter. Anybody could do this, as long as they have the commitment to stand up to the United States government and say, no, sorry boys, you know what's going on. We do. We've known it for 50, 60, 70 years. The load that you've been selling over the last 70 years has been, totally incredulously false, and it's time that we come out with it. And I think any rogue nation could do it. France could do it. Spain could do it. Canada could do it. The possibilities are endless. And once all the information comes out, someone will actually make a declaration one way or another, and it may not be the United States.
Victor, I want to say thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. You know you always have an open door policy on this. Anytime you want to come on, I will make time for you. That's just the way it is, my friend. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Pleasure being with you, and look forward to the next time.
Awesome. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this break.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Space Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spaceoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Here we go with the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you along for the ride if you're taking part in a packed house in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. In Revolution Radio, you guys are jam-packed as well, along with our flagship chat room, the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the show, it's going to be fun and intense. We're going into the paranormal. Live ghost box session for 3 hours with Bill Hauser. It's going to be a lot of fun. Last time we had Bill on, he kind of freaked me out a little bit. Gave my real last name on the ghost box. Not Bill, whatever was speaking through it. I didn't believe in it. Didn't believe in it at all until that happened. So, there we go. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, right here on the mighty SOR. Remember, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight surreptitiously. For you space travelers, surreptitiously is your password. Use it wisely, because if you don't use it properly, you don't want to know what the results are. Thank you, Bill Cardwell, for setting the password for tonight. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, join the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's only $5 a month. With that, you get private access to private group interviews, private access to a posting section on our website. Matthew Smith is the latest space traveler to sign up. He did that yesterday. Thank you, Matthew. His name now goes in for a monthly prize draw, which we do the final Friday of every month. The next one will be this Friday. We're going to make that draw. And yes, Joe Allgaier, your winning prize from last week will be in the mail tomorrow. So thank you so much for winning the inaugural prize here in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tonight we are going into hour number 3 with a familiar voice from Forest Moon Paranormal and S4 with E Squared. Eric Cooper, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing good. And did you say Joe was getting a pointy stick for a prize?
Pointy stick.
That's what I heard.
He wanted
a pointy stick for a prize.
He wanted a pointy stick for a prize. So I've gone out into the Spaced Out Radio wilderness. See, because around the log cabin here, Uncle Jimbo's cabin, we got a lot of trees around here. You know, Bigfoot could be looking in the window at no time, and it could actually, you know, we wouldn't even see it. The trees are so thick in this area.
And if you mail it here, I'll throw a beard hair on it, and then we'll mail it to him.
Absolutely. That works for me. That works for me. For those of you who don't know, the official beard of Spaced Out Radio is Eric Cooper's beard, because that's the way we roll around here. We got official titles for absolutely everything. You know,
I think Bigfoot's even jealous of my beard.
Absolutely. I really think that. Some heated discussion tonight in the chat rooms. You know,
I know it. I had to leave. Let me say this real quick. Trippin, get out of the corner. I see Trippin hiding behind the corner, behind the chair there. Get up, sit down, and ask questions.
Absolutely.
I've seen him.
Absolutely. You know what? He is a good guy. Because the SOR UFO is full, he is sitting in the middle of the floor tonight. You know, but okay. I will stand up from the captain's seat, and I will hand it over to Trippin tonight to make that happen. So that is all good. The SOR Space Travelers, that is a calm room tonight. You know, maybe they got some Bob Marley playing in the background. In the Revolution Radio chat room, they're chatting about whatever they're chatting about. But I know they're listening because they're good people. Aren't you blasphemous? Right. Buddha, Up, Olive. You know who I'm talking about. Where's Zippy hiding tonight? That's what we need to do. That's what we need to get into. So, what I want to do in this third hour is, if any of you new listeners out there want to know anything about my own experiences, because you know there's already been a couple of questions tonight, type them in capital letters. I will go into them. I will go into them, you know, with you on what brought Spaced Out Radio together, what brought this show together, why I'm doing it. And Eric, you can tag along with me to be my own personal guidance to whether or not I'm a little bit loony or not in regards to my own personal experiences.
Okay.
You know, because that's the way we roll around here. So, we really like it. We really like it a lot. I thought the topic of... Okay, Spear Carrier is in the Spaced Out Radio chat room is asking, you promised me a story. I'm past my bedtime. I want my story now. Okay.
I've seen that.
Which story do you want, Spear? Which story do you want?
Do you want alien and UFO? Do you want Bigfoot? Do you want, I mean, Dave's got it all.
Yeah. You know what? Dave is just, I'll tell you, I'm talking in third person here. But Dave, seriously, has had some weird experiences. Okay. Mario, Victor was only on for the first 2 hours, and we have Eric Cooper on now joining us. So, if you have any questions, fire them away. Make sure you put them in capital letters, and we will get to them. Now, my own experiences, I really appreciate. And you have to learn how to appreciate them. And I'm sure you can agree with that, Eric. Whether they are benevolent or malevolent, there comes a point where you have to appreciate the exercise at what happened. Because a lot of people, the majority in this world, will never have a UFO sighting. They will never have or understand what it is to have paranormal ghostly phenomena. They will never see Bigfoot because, let's face it, the majority of population now lives in a city, in a cavernous city.
Right, and they don't make it to the mountains where Bigfoot is. So, indeed, unless you're a hiker, and even if you're a hiker, Bigfoot's not necessarily going to show himself. So, indeed.
Mario has a question here. Dave, does Victor believe the Vatican power structure itself is alien nature? No, he does not. He does admit, and he did admit on this show, that he does believe that they know about extraterrestrials, that they have been involved. He believes there may have even been a pope or two that has met extraterrestrials. But as for the Vatican itself, no, he doesn't believe that, and I'll be honest with you, I don't buy that either. I really don't. You know, one of the...
Go ahead. If I recall, one of the popes actually said that if believes them, and they're just another part of the creation. I can't remember which pope. It's fairly in the last 5-10 years at least, though.
You broke up quite a bit on that one, my friend, so I'll get you to repeat that.
Okay, if I recall, in the last 5-10 years, I recall hearing a pope say that he believed if there were aliens, they were created in God's image as well.
Yes, that was Pope Francis who said that.
Okay.
Right. I'm trying to quickly here bring up the Russian UFO book, because I know in there it does mention a couple of popes who have met with extraterrestrials.
You're gonna make me break that book up.
No, I've got it pulled up here, and I just got to zoom through the pages until I find it here. But I do know what it is. Okay, I know it's on one of the final pages here. So you got to just let me load this up here. Steve is asking. Go ahead.
For those that are in Forest Moon Paranormal, that book is in our library.
Mm-hmm. Okay, while we're waiting for that, Marla is asking, Dave Scott, what sparked you on the paranormal team? What sparked you on the paranormal team? The first taste that made you go in the direction in your first experience or encounter. Okay. I can tell you the date and the time. It was December 13th, 2011 at 7:45 p.m. How do I know that date so well? That was the date we were throwing Christmas at my house for my daughter, who was going on a Christmas cruise with my ex-wife's parents over the holidays. And at 7:45, or about 7:40, my parents said that they were leaving for the night. And so, and about 7:45, I was tidying up, getting all the dishes taken care of. My daughter had opened up all her presents and, cleaning up, kind of tidying as you go. And at about 7:45, I walk into my kitchen from my dining room through the doorway to give my mother a hug. And when I walked in that doorway, I noticed that the other 25 people who were in that room, nobody was moving. Nobody was talking. There was no sound on the television. And I looked into my mother's eyes, and she has these beautiful blue eyes. And I still see this. Every time I tell this story, I see this happen. And I looked into my mother's eyes. They were jet black, and where her pupils would be, there was something white in her pupils looking back at me. And immediately I got sick to my stomach and felt the urge to cry, because I knew I was looking into the eyes of the angel of death. Don't ask me how I knew. I just knew. You just know. And Eric, you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, you get that. Yeah.
I kind of cocked my head to the right, kind of like, am I seeing what I'm seeing? And my mother all of a sudden had this look of shock on her face, almost like, oh, you see me. And she shook her head, and all of a sudden her eyes were back to blue. She gave me a hug, and everybody in the room was moving, like nothing had happened. So at about 2.5, 3 hours later, my wife and I, after everybody's calmed down, the kids are in bed, my wife and I go into our living room, and she sits on one couch. There's a table between us. I sit on the other. She lights a white candle. She goes, why don't you just relax and maybe try and figure out what you saw? The next 38 minutes, I do not remember what happened. My wife does. My wife absolutely remembered that I channeled the angel of death. I had no idea previous to this what channeling was. Hadn't even heard about it. And through me, the angel of death stated that I was not supposed to see him, but because I did, he felt he owed me an explanation. He told me that my mother had been very ill over the years. My mother was a breast cancer and a colon cancer survivor. And my mother had become, on a sidebar note, my mother had become addicted to sympathy. And during that sympathy, like you'd pick up the phone and she would answer the phone, hello? Oh, hi, Mom. How you feeling today? Oh, I'm in so much pain. I need sympathy. She wouldn't say that. I'm exaggerating, but that was along the lines of the way it was. And so the angel of death basically through me told me that it was true. She was suffering. And here's the interesting part, and I didn't realize this until about 6 months ago, the interesting part of this conversation. He said through me, he goes, if you as a family, because my ex-wife, she was asking questions, and she said, how do we keep Mama Spaced Out Radio alive? And basically through me, the angel of death said, if you as a family do not start showing her more love and compassion for what she's going through, I'm going to take her home. He didn't say heaven. He didn't say hell. He didn't say purgatory.
Right.
He said, I'm going to take her home. And about 6 months ago, that started resonating with me. Right? And so next day, I get on the phone with my sisters, my grandmother. My dad was at that point was a real five senses guy, so I didn't even bother talking to him about it until months later. After I actually started Spaced Out Radio. And I even told my mom what happened eventually. And I can tell you this. As a family, we bonded together. My mother is still alive, and this is now going on 5 years. My mother would have never got to meet my son. Little SOR, he's 3 now. And it's funny because my mom could barely pick up a spatula to flip a pancake. That's how weak she was. And when my son came along in 2013, my mom, to this day, this is a weak woman who is on death's bed. She still picks him up. And he's 37 pounds. Okay, she still picks him up now. And this is a lady who couldn't pick up a bloody spatula. So something happened there spiritually on December 13th, 2011, that night, because I'm very fortunate my mother is still with us. So that is what got me started on all of this stuff.
Well, that'd be enough. I mean, for real.
Yeah. So at that point, 5 days later, I told a good friend of mine that she was going to date a famous musician. And the time was coming soon. 11 months later, he walked into her in a Las Vegas casino. And he wouldn't leave her alone. And then it all started from there. For me, it started very paranormally. It started with the angel of death. Then it started with, all of a sudden, I started getting intuitiveness. I wouldn't call myself psychic. I don't call myself that at all. I do not practice it. Maybe I should, but when I see things, I literally, go for it. And I speak what's on my mind. Am I right all the time? No, not even close.
I don't think anyone is, though.
Well, exactly, but I don't trust my own. I don't trust my own intuition. Put it that way, if I can put it that way, right? And I can say this. It's something that it started off paranormally. And then a good friend of mine, Pascal, who works as an energy healer and helping people open up, he started working with me. And as more we worked, he's like, yeah, you're going to start dealing with ETs and UFOs. The guides want you to do that. And I'm like, no way, man. I'm getting out of that. I don't want anything to do with that. That stuff scares me. It scares the crap out of me. But he was right. He was right. In mid-summer of 2012, through 2013 and a little bit into 2014, pretty much any time I wanted to go outside and see a UFO, I could see one. I don't know why. I don't know why to this day. And, ever since then, weird things have happened, i.e., the UFO 3 weeks ago tonight flying on over my house at my command.
Well, I think Destiny wants you to have the best show out there. And to have the best show out there, the host has to experience every aspect of the paranormal to make a very broad show. Think of it that way.
Well, you know what? I try and stay humble with comments like that, okay? Because I don't want to turn in, if this show all of a sudden explodes, I don't want to turn into one of those jerks, you know what I'm saying, who just...
Oh, I know exactly who does saying.
All of a sudden, well, all you people who supported me at the grassroots level, you're beneath me now because I have 3 million listeners a night or 1 million listeners a night. Hell, I would accept 100,000. Okay? Right. I never want to be that guy. And any of you who've been here through the grassroots level, if Spaced Out Radio is ever lucky enough to be one of those nighttime shows, you have permission to kick my ass. You do. Because I don't want to be that guy. I like having the interaction with the crowd. I like having the interaction with the questions. I like the weird things that happen. And we've had some weird things happen during this show. Okay? Our new listener, Steve, who happens to be from my old stomping grounds, and Steve, thank you for finding us and giving us an opportunity. I appreciate that. That's how we grow, one person at a time. That's how this gets bigger. And this is how we expand. And we've had some pretty crazy things happen during this show. I've had faces appear at the window, both paranormal and extraterrestrial. I'll never forget seeing that gray at the window when that happened. April 20th, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Thunderbird in the Revolution Radio chat room is saying, I have a story of cancer death that you will find interesting, involving the witnessing of the soul actually departing the body. Sometimes later, plus some advice on your mother. Thunderbird, I will tell you this. In July of 2012, my beautiful wife's grandmother passed away. We got the phone call. She was 93, 94 years old. She had a good run. Great lady. I wasn't close to her. I only met her. Mrs. Spaced Out Radio and I at that time were only together 4 years, and I maybe met her grandmother a handful of times, but she was always exceptionally warm and loving to me. That was just her personality that filtered through the family right to my wife and my stepdaughter. Okay, a very lucky guy. So we get the phone call that it's time to for the family to gather. So I leave work, I go pick up my wife, and I take her to the old age home where Grandma was. And there's Grandma. The last time I saw her, she was healthy. She was, typical overweight grandmother. You know how it goes. And she was gaunt and she was thin, like she'd lost 50 pounds or something like that. Didn't even recognize her while she's, struggling to breathe. And immediately when I walked in that room, Eric, I recognized the energy. And I'd never really recognized energy before. But I had recognized the energy of the angel of death. Because don't forget, I had him inside of me. Okay? When I channeled him, I knew that energy. And I walked in that room and I got all cocky. For the next couple of hours, I got cocky. I was in there because I was starting to get a grasp on this stuff and all these weird happenings. And I walk in that room and I'm mentally saying, okay, where are you? I know you're here. I feel you. I know you're here. I can feel your energy up in that corner. I could feel your energy behind Grandma. I could feel the energy moving all around. And I said, just show me.
Right.
Just show me something. I know you're here. Nobody else knows you're here. It's you and me. I know you're here. And I'm going off like this, just being a total a-hole, right? And about 2.5 hours later, he got his revenge on me. And when I say revenge, I mean it was probably, next to my children being born, it was probably the greatest spiritual gift I have ever received. And it's funny, because since that day, I have not had a real, true anxiety attack about death like I always used to get.
Now, did he leave a funny taste in your mouth, or any? No. Was there any telltale sign that he had occupied you?
I woke up the next morning after that channeling session, Eric, where my neck was very sore. Okay, and I was tired. I felt like I didn't sleep at all that night.
That's because you had a 7-foot entity inside your body.
Well, and no, and realistically, I talked to a psychic friend of mine the next day about it, who channels, and she happened to be at my house that night. Okay, and she picked up on something was happening, and I called her up and I told her what had happened, and she goes, yeah. She goes, welcome to the club. She goes, you just channeled the angel of death. Anyways, quickly back to my grandmother's, or my wife's grandmother's story. So I'm standing at the foot of the bed. Grandma's feet are literally about 6 inches in front of me. I have my right arm around my wife who's sobbing, and we're watching this lady die. I've never seen a person die in my life up until this point. And all of a sudden, the angel of death kind of was like, okay, all right, you've been challenging me the whole time. Here you go. And God is my witness. And yes, I am a believer in God. I watched her spirit come right out of her body. And he held that spirit there for 2 or 3 seconds. Kind of like, hey, it was almost like one of those, hey, is this what you want to see? Is this what you want? You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden, I watched that spirit shoot right through at lightning speed, man, like faster than Mach speed. I watched that spirit leave her chest, hovering over her body. I watched it shoot right through the ceiling, and the energy in that room from the angel of death was gone. There was nothing there. So I did what a normal reaction was. I kind of, under my breath, went, holy sh... You know? And I, like you just did, I started giggling. And I whispered in my wife's ear, I said, she's gone. She's like, no, she's still breathing. And I pulled her outside. I said, you are not going to believe what I just saw. And she's like, what? I said, I just saw your grandmother's spirit leave her body. She's gone. She's like, no, she's still breathing. She's still breathing. I said, honey, did you hear what I said? I just watched her spirit leave her body. I said, that was effing awesome. You know, it was. It was fantastic. Spear is asking, what did it look like? Honestly, it looked like if you took okay, it's going to sound weird, but you know when you go to an amusement park and you buy the cotton candy on a stick, you know, they have those paper sticks that they wrap the cotton candy around? Imagine that white. Not with the stick. So pull the stick out. Imagine that white. That you have this little cloud. There's no shape to it. It honestly looked like a cloud. There was no like hands or legs or feet, so if anybody tells you that crap, they're wrong. Okay? But it was like a little cloud that was just sitting above the body. And it was clear as day. It would be like me looking at my computer screen right now. Clear as day. You know? And I'm sitting there saying, wow, unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I can't believe that this happened. 4 months later, I get my Bigfoot sighting with 2 Bigfoot. UFOs are all around, from black triangles to orbs in the sky.
Right.
And then, all of a sudden, guess what? The aliens start showing up.
The whole gamut.
Yeah. You know, and you know what the weird part about it is, Eric? To this day, I still wonder why me. Because I liked my happily boring life. I really did.
Because you've got the radio voice.
And a face for radio. Don't forget that.
Exactly.
Face for radio, man. I need your beard, though. I need to borrow your beard for Halloween so I can be Eric Cooper.
Isn't tugging it at the Paracon enough?
Well, you know what? I am Flamster in the, or Flamster, Flampzer in the Revolution Radio chat room said, I saw much the same thing when my dad passed. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. It is pretty cool. Yeah. It sure gives you a real peace of mind, because that proved to me right there that whether you believe in God or not, whether you believe in a higher power or not, whether you believe that when you expire as a human that you're going to heaven or you go somewhere, I know personally, whether you believe me or not, I really don't care. I really don't care, because there's going to be people listening to this who say, oh, that guy's full of it. That guy, you know, he's off his rocker.
Yeah, you'll never have any shortage of those people.
No, absolutely.
And, you know, I've heard the same description when I led pagan groups in Iraq, in Talafar. One of our soldiers she worked in the emergency room. She was a medic, and she saw numerous spirits pass. Because, I mean, working in the emergency room, you know, you got gunshot victims, IED victims, you name it. So, yeah, I've heard the exact same description. Me personally, never seen it. I've heard that same description over and over and over again.
I would love to get a military medic on this show. I would love to do that, because I think there are some very important stories that they could tell on a spiritual sense that would blow our mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be fantastic.
I'm thinking, because you don't want... You're going to want a combat medic. You're going to want possibly like she was in the emergency room. I'll see what I can dig up.
Yeah. Shar is asking in the Spaced Out Radio chat room, she's saying, Dave, you're not scared of death like you used to be? No. Why would I? It was my personal let me explain my own values here. Okay? I believe in God. Don't care what any of you think. That's my choice. I believe in Jesus, that he is the Son of God. Don't care what any of you think. But I don't believe in a vengeful God. I don't believe in a God that's going to tear mankind apart. I believe in the fact that that God is all. God is love. God is the Alpha and Omega. Now, this is what has happened to me through my experiences over the last number of years. I have, for myself, been able to define a huge difference between what I believe in God and religion. Religion to me, and I'm not trying to turn this into a huge debate, but if it goes there, so be it. Mm-hmm. Okay? Religion to me has caused nothing but problems on this planet. Okay? The human interpretation of the Bible, whether it's King James, whatever version you want it to be, okay? The human interpretation of the Bible or the Quran or whatever, okay? Whatever book you use for your own spiritual guidance has screwed this planet over big time.
Every war we've had has been based on religion.
Absolutely. But for me personally, my friend, I've been able, for my own sake, not for anybody else's sake, because I'm not preaching. I know it sounds like I'm preaching here now because I'm on the microphone and I have the power. But for me personally, I have been able to define what I believe spiritually. Okay, I pray to God every night before I go to bed. And I thank him for everything he's given me, even though on my personal life it's pretty tough right now. Okay? I thank him for that. I pray for all my family and friends, which includes all of you. Okay? But what the biggest problem that people have right now, in my opinion, and since I have the conch, I'm going to run with it, is they have yet to define the difference between believing in, if you're a believer in God, believing in God is one thing. Okay? That is your own spirituality. The humanization of religion is the downfall of mankind. Mm-hmm. Okay? And it wasn't until I became more spiritually in tune with myself and having the experiences that I have had, okay, to learn that I couldn't figure out, Eric. Every time when I was younger, I liked going to church. But I never went because when I went there, especially as an adult, I could look at the church and all I would feel is hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. All I would feel is I could look at someone and say, yeah, you smack your wife, or you beat your kids, or you're cheating on your spouse, or you're a liar, you were drunk last night in the bar, I saw you. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that hypocrisy would beat me up, because I loved going to church. I loved the message. I loved the singing. When you get a congregation singing, that's pretty cool stuff. Okay? You could feel that. But when the people in there are just as fake, and they're only there because they think if they repent on Sunday, they are good, I would feel that, man. I would feel that. You know, it was ridiculous. And I'm sure you had the same thing when you started defining your own religious beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, Claudia has a question. She says, seems like there is a magic pendulum always in play, swinging far right, then far left, then settles in the middle to keep us in balance. For instance, too much exercise, then no exercise. Then we learn moderate exercise. Apparently that's one I haven't learned yet, Claudia. Drinking a lot, then no drinking, then we learn to moderate drinking. Seems this is in play for everything in life to keep us in balance. Has anyone noticed this? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine. Okay? I was talking to a friend of mine today, my former boss in the finance business that I work in during the daytime. You know, good guy away from work, but at work he was just, you know, he almost sent me to a nervous breakdown. Anyways, that's why I ended up moving north into the sticks. Mm-hmm. We used to call this guy Teflon, because he would piss people off, he would screw people over, he would do anything to make a dollar. And when he told me that I needed to change my ways and my values in order to do the job properly, when I was the best one that he had, I decided it was time to leave. And this, like I said, this guy was was Teflon. He even got off on a murder charge he didn't murder someone, but what do they call that? Associate? You know, he was associated with a person who did commit murder. You know what I'm saying? And the police were going to ring him up on that. Teflon got right off. Anyways, you know, in the last couple months, he has gone from losing his 24-year-old son to a drug overdose, and now I heard that he may have terminal cancer. So eventually that run does come out. It does catch up with you, Claudia, and I hope that answers your question, because that was someone who couldn't find balance. You know, and that's just the way it is. Just the way it is sometimes. What do you think about balance, Eric?
I think everything needs balance, whether it's dark or light. There always has to be balance.
Mm-hmm.
You can't live in an unbalanced world.
Try having a bad equilibrium. That
Indeed.
That doesn't go well. Does not go well. You know what I'm saying? You know, but it's amazing, though, how there's people out there that are just absolute Teflon. And everything slides off of them. You know. But what do you do? What did you think of Victor Viggiani tonight?
I thought he was good. I mean, I missed the first hour. I caught the last hour of him. I wish he would have talked a little more about the Vatican. He caught that too late.
You know, that's kind of the you can blame me for that one. I'll take the blame on that one. And I'll tell you why. Because sometimes as a host, we do what we call teasing, right? And
you got to build up.
Exactly. Because here's what I noticed. If I looked in my chat rooms at showtime, I had 2 people in the Spaced Out Radio chat room. Now there's about 20 in there, or at least 20, 25 throughout the show. And those are just the ones chatting. In the SOR Space Travelers, there was about 4 people at that time. And in Revolution Radio, they were still, you know, finishing up another show before they flipped over to ours, the listeners, that is. Right?
Okay.
So if you give all the goodies up in that first little bit, then you got nothing. So all of a sudden you get into the other topics, like we were talking about the disclosure conference, which I thought was very important that we got into. And you know, you try and time everything out.
Yeah, but I would have liked to have heard his opinion of disclosure, in that who steps out and discloses. We've talked about this before on Roundtable.
Yes, we have.
And you and I believe, are on the same page as far as it should be the Pope. you're going to have a lot less chaos and a lot less pandemonium if the religious leader of pretty much the majority religion, Catholicism, steps up. And I think Pope Francis will be the proper one to do it because he's the Pope for the people that's stepped up.
Mm-hmm.
He really is. He's the one, like I believe it was Trippin that said earlier, is the first one that's ever come out and would wash people's feet and actually feed the homeless. And actually, rather than staying at the Vatican, would prefer to stay in a modest apartment. He is the Pope for the people. You got to admit that. So he would be the one to keep chaos by being the one to step out and saying, yes, aliens are here. They are real. So be it. Versus Obama or the CIA or anyone in the U.S. government that everyone expects to. That will be chaos.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I can see why the government is holding off because, let's face it, arms sales are, I mean, in the military-industrial complex, Eric, arms sales are going through the roof right now. I mean, everybody who's anybody down there who's a gun owner has to have an AR-15. I mean, that's a proven media stat right now. Everybody wants an AR-15.
Let's not discuss that.
No, I'm not getting into the whole gun issue. But what I'm saying, though, is in the military-industrial complex, and I'm curious to hear, as a former soldier of the United States Army, what your opinion is on this. Do you think the fear-mongering that goes on with the military-industrial complex has maybe the government officials a little worried that if they all of a sudden bring ETs into the fold, that there might be a good shoot-'em-up at the OK Corral?
Oh, God. Yeah, it would be worse. If they all of a sudden brought ETs, you would see a lot more gun sales go up. Now, it's funny you bring that up, too, because there's another point, and I'm going to look at this for S4, because I've been asked in the last month about 4 different times about these people that are seeing UN vehicles in America. Now, in fact, I had a guy that shot me an article, wanted to hear my opinion of it, and it's valid, but here's my point. You can look up UN vehicles all over the internet and find a picture of UN convoys in America. I don't completely buy into internet pictures. Now, you actually drive down your own freeway in, I don't know, Vermont or Florida or whatever, and see a convoy of UN vehicles and take a picture, I'm going to take that a bit more serious. But not just some random picture or some random, picture someone shows me off the internet. I don't buy into it completely. But because I don't have internet right now, I've been doing a lot of offline research, which is videos I've got and files I've got that I've been reading up on, getting ideas for S4. And, of course, the Illuminati show's coming up, so I've been looking at that. But I happened to watch Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory today on the FEMA camps. And, of course, the UN vehicles and all that came up as well. So, yeah, we get this closure and then UN vehicles and whatnot on top of it. You're going to see martial law.
Well, I don't know if you'll see martial law, but I will say this. There are some issues going around, and let's face it, the United States right now, and we're not getting political, would be a good area, or even Canada. The UN vehicles have been in Canada too. Okay, in my opinion, what they're doing is they're just doing training exercises because it's better to test those things in a peaceful situation rather than a hostile situation without preparation. This is where I kind of step back, and maybe I'm a little too naive on this, and you're way more experienced than I am, Eric. So please tell me that my opinion is wrong if you feel it is. But in my opinion, I just feel that, they need safe places to train. And if you have to do a large-scale training session, Okay. Now, Jade Helm was something else. I think Jade Helm was something totally else. But I'm having a real hard time defining the difference between what is paranoia on the alternative media side, like we've talked about sensationalism so much lately on this program, or what is true military training.
Here's another point to bring up. Because when I was at Fort Lewis, the Japanese Army came to Fort Lewis every other year. The name of the exercise escapes me. But because they are a defensive army only and not offensive, they brought their weapons, they brought all their toys, and we went to Yakima Training Center, which is all desert, and we pretty much ran their exercise. All they had to do is eat the food we gave them and go out in the range that we provided and shoot their weapons. It was a fun time. It was a very educational time learning about the Japanese culture. But the point with that is we have U.S. military works with foreign militaries all the time, helping them train, helping them do exercises. We also have the School of America. That's been on the conspiracy circuit for a long time. It's not a conspiracy, it's fact. The School of America teaches counterterrorism. It's on Fort Benning in Georgia. And so we have foreign diplomats, we have foreign militaries all the time. So do I give a lot of credence to it? Not really. I mean, UN vehicles, for example, are made here in America anyway, so you might see a convoy of UN vehicles. Doesn't mean it's the UN coming here to train or do anything else. They might be shipping the UN vehicles somewhere else.
I hate to tell you, but if they're a Chrysler or a GM or a Ford product, or, you know, they're not coming to invade. They're probably being shipped out somewhere by one of the manufacturers to wherever they're going to be shipped out of. Because, let's face it, there's transport planes all over the U.S. that have to take those vehicles wherever they need to go. Mm-hmm. I like that point that you made. Thank you for bringing that up.
Well, yeah, I just, you have to, I know there's fear-mongering going on, and I try to calm people down the best I can. I've actually got a buddy in Forest Moon that's tracking some of these stories. He's a retired Air Force officer. Knows a few more resources to find out if our military is actually going to be working with martial law. I don't think they are. My experience with my soldiers, a few years ago, we've had this discussion because martial law is not a new concept. The discussion of taking weapons is not a new concept. They were discussing this 5 or 6 years ago. Oh, Obama's going to cause martial... No, he's not. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I don't buy into it. But we've had this discussion as soldiers. Would we ever turn on American people? About 90% of them, you still got the 10%, hoo-hoo, I support my government, whatever, I took an oath. Yeah, okay, good for you. It's a corrupt government, so I wouldn't stand for it. But most of us would not shoot our own people. You could throw a rock, you could throw a brick. Now, if you shoot a weapon at us, okay, it's a different concept, it's a different story. But about 90% of our troops would not turn on America. Now, if they were threatened by a corrupt government, you might have a few more, but no, I think most of it's fear-mongering. I think you got a lot of paranoid people out there that are stockpiling that shouldn't be, because they're going to be targets.
Agreed. Do you want to go overtime?
We can go overtime.
You want overtime?
Do it.
Okay.
Sound the alarm.
Well, it's not time yet for the alarm. We'll sound the overtime alarm, because on Revolution Radio, if you want to take part in our overtime, you got to go to spacedoutradio.com to check that out, because our feed with Revolution Radio ends at midnight Pacific time, 3 a.m. Eastern time. We got about 7 minutes left with them. So if you want to listen in and you want to participate, go to spacedoutradio.com, click on the Spreaker side. You can join the chat room. Click on the little follow button on there too. We're trying to get to 1,000. We're at like 827 or 828 right now. So we're almost there. I could see the end of the line on that. Yeah. I think we should do a little bit of overtime.
Sounds good to me.
People are chanting overtime, man. Hell, even you're chanting overtime in the chat room.
I am. We don't go over to overtime very often.
We haven't gone overtime in a long while. You know, and
No.
Claudia, our question queen, and I mean that with all due love and respect to Claudia. She's got an.
I love her questions, though.
I know she's a brilliant lady, really is, and I know she's blushing when she hears this because she absolutely can't stand it when I compliment her on the air. But you know, I'm sure deep down she really does enjoy it. But she has an awesome question that we are going to get into on the other side of the break. And to the new people, Steve in Australia and Steve here in British Columbia, overtime is this. Normally the show is 3 hours long. We actually bump it to 4 because sometimes we just need to go a little bit longer.
Sometimes we need a vent.
We're venting tonight. I'm having a lot of fun. I am having so much fun right now that... oh, by the way, Denise, she's like, sadly, I have to go to bed soon. If I'm going to be a guest on your show, Denise, you got to stay up. You have to stay up. Tell your hubby, David, to wake up as well, because we're having fun on the Mighty SOR tonight. I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling wide awake. Eric Cooper is tugging at his beard right now. He's so excited for OT. We're gonna We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this in like 5 minutes. So I'm not even gonna throw the Bumblefoot on. Normally I'll play Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL.
Right.
I should tell you this. I'm actually gonna get a special T-shirt made up for him.
Oh, do it.
I am. I've got an artist working on it right now. And unfortunately, it's only going to be for him. And I'll make one for his wife, Mrs. Bumblefoot, as well, who's a very brilliant lady. She's actually a veterinarian in New York or New Jersey, one of the two places, wherever they live. And anyhow, I'm going to create a Bumbalian T-shirt for him.
That rocks.
I am going to get a T-shirt made up. I want you to picture this. If you've never seen Ron Bumblefoot THAL, go on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and you'll be able to see him if you click on the Bumblefoot banner. Or what you do is you go over, just Google images and type in Bumblefoot. Anyways, he's got long hair. He's got this kick-ass goatee that it's actually braided halfway down his chest. You know, typical rock star type look. I'm going to get an alien gray with his hair and that goatee made up. Playing a double neck guitar like he does. The Bumbalian. I'm going to get that made up for him. You know. So
And I've got to apologize to my Space Travelers chat room. I haven't been there in a while because my internet's down. But I miss them all. Bill Cardwell and Gail and I know I'm going to miss them all. Forget a lot of them. And Joe.
Yeah, Joe has nice hair.
He does.
Hey, I just want to get into the break here for a second. When we say goodnight to Revolution Radio, we are going to take a 7-minute break. Okay, because that's the length of my commercials on my computer right now. And when we come back, we're going to start off overtime. We're going to go right till 1 a.m. Pacific, 4 a.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. if you are in Texas. And you know who you are, Denise. You are in Texas. 2 a.m. You can go to 2. It works. Trust me. Or is it 3?
Right.
3. Maybe. Oh, geez, it might be 3. I may have just put my foot in my mouth.
She's Central.
Yeah, Central is 2 hours. So you can go till 3 a.m. I'm going till 1. You can go till 3. And for COG in Alaska, that will be midnight your time, my friend, since you are an hour ahead of me. And if you're in Hawaii, it'll be 10 o'clock. So that's what we do. So in about 3 minutes' time, we're going to bark out for a 7-minute break. We're going to say goodnight to the fans at Revolution Radio. Once again, if you want to listen in, go to spacedoutradio.com, and you can join us there because our signal ends in like 2 minutes. I got to tell you this, though. I am hungry. I am hungry tonight.
Frosted Flakes.
I might steal some of Little SOR's Lucky Charms.
Oh, there you go.
After last night's talk with Richard Webster on superstitions, and we got into Lucky Charms, I might steal some of his Lucky Charms. Although I'm usually a Raisin Bran guy, and I actually put some banana on there. I like slicing up some banana and putting that on top of my Raisin Bran.
I don't like raisins.
Your beard does.
No, it doesn't. My beard doesn't like raisins either.
Oh. Sif in Australia says it'll be 3 p.m. in Western Australia. Sif, if you want to continue listening in, you got to go to spacedoutradio.com, click on the enter site, but make sure you rock out to Little Brother is watching first on our website, and then the show will automatically load for you because we are live on the hour, and during the show, it'll automatically open up for you. Mario is being a jerk in the Spaced Out Radio chat room. He's saying nachos with lots of cheese and jalapenos. That's right.
Oh, jalapeno! You can't. Yeah, you can't forget the jalapenos either.
I'm not going to lie. I am. Oh, hold on. I got a note from Mr. Rowe here. You are welcome to hold the server. I don't know how. I don't know how to hold the server. All I know is that there will be for Revolution.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Well, if we can hold the server, let's go another hour. He's saying there is no one after you, so you can keep going on Rev Radio if you wish. We will do that. Let's step out for a commercial right now, and we'll be back.
7 minutes?
7 minutes. We'll be back.
All right.
Overtime coming up. All right.
Okay.
Looking for news?
Are we clear?
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4 Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Space Out Radio's news director for the SOR Space Wire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spaceoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. That signal signifies overtime here on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you all with us as we bring Eric Cooper back into Spaced Out Radio land. How are we all doing?
Oh, we're doing great.
Well, we're still a little bit early on the Studio B side with Revolution Radio. I'm sure they'll get that cleaned up. When you hear that horn,
1,000 seeds.
when you hear that horn, basically what you are doing is you are hearing overtime. That's what we do around here. We hit the horn and we get overtime right here.
Grab our seed pack special.
I don't know if Revolution is hooked up with us, so we'll get Mr.
Part of the problem. Be part of the solution.
Well, I accidentally may have screwed that one up. Because apparently I missed a note from Mr. Rowe in Revolution Radio that basically said, just don't hang it up until you're really done. And I did.
Line, everything website, all on the DVD.
So, I don't know where he's hanging out, but maybe we'll get it. Maybe I screwed it up. I don't know.
So thank you.
I really don't know. All I know is right now I'm talking over top of them. I know you're getting snow in the background right now. That's from the Skype line. From here, I'll go like that and turn that off. There we go. And maybe we're live now. It sounds like it. It sounds like it. I made a boo-boo. That was totally my fault. My bad on my end. Now I think we're clear. How you doing, Eric?
Oh, I'm doing good.
Excellent. So, the horn, if you hear the horn, and I'll mention this for our Revolution Radio people, because they're probably like, what the Sam hell was that horn? When we blow the horn, I'll blow it again. Hold on. If you're a hockey fan, you should actually recognize this sound. Hold on. When you hear that horn, see, old Davey is a hockey fan. I'm a hockey guy. And that's, of course, when a goal is scored, the horn goes off. Budweiser has what they call the Budweiser red light. I should get a sponsorship for that. And so I have it programmed, that light, it's computerized. I actually have it programmed to my smartphone that every time my Vancouver Canucks score a goal, that horn goes off during the hockey season.
Oh, that's cool.
Or if it's during the Olympics or some special Team Canada event, I could program that in and the horn will go off every time Team Canada scores. Because
I need to get one of those for every time the Seahawks make a touchdown.
They don't have them for the NFL, man. Give us something. You Americans beat the living hell out of hockey all the time. At least give us one thing that the NFL doesn't have. Mr. Rowe, I want to say thank you for getting us hooked up on the Revolution Radio side because I screwed that up. That was my bad. So, thank you, Mr. Rowe. Let's clap for him.
I'm clapping.
Yeah, me too. So I appreciate that. We are live with Overtime here on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to go until the top of the hour, and we're going to broadcast because we're just having fun. And really, I don't really want to leave right now because I'm not tired. I'm not ready to go to bed. Okay, before the break, and Eric, you can answer this one first, as I'm joined by Eric Cooper from Force Moon Paranormal and his new radio show, S4 with E Squared, broadcast on Spreaker, and well as promoted by Spaced Out Radio as well, including Eric's beard, which is officially Spaced Out Radio territory, so he's not allowed to cut it due to the dismay of his wife. Claudia is asking in the Spaced Out Radio chat room, and I like this question. And let me get to it. She says, if they stoned Jesus for sharing the 10 Commandments, which can help uplift mankind, if the Pope says there is ETs, would there possibly be people thinking that he is the Antichrist? Conditioning is powerful, and many cannot break through their conditioning and be in fear instead of thinking if there are billions of planets out there and life lives there, and ETs would be God's children also, would they not?
Mm-hmm. I fully agree with that, and I always do love Char's questions. They're awesome. They're deeply thought out. Now, you know, I've heard theories and rumors that Pope Francis will not make it to his full term. I think he will. But could he be stoned or seen as the Antichrist? I reckon by the radical extremist side. And I'll go out there and say that. Because who are they to dictate otherwise? I mean, if you actually think that out of the billions of planets and billions